Welcome all, and let's start today's session. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic that is going to reveal the silent signals behind the art and burden of reading others. Everything we attend to in other persons generates meaning at an unconscious level, sometimes in subconscious level as well. That we are going to understand deeply and how we can actually plan our thought process, not only action but also the thought process, so that we can avoid and keep our focus intact on the things that really matter. That is the agenda of today's session. So we are actually transitioning now. We now transition to the third major pillar of focus. What is that? That is reading others. Consider the story of Katrina, right? Growing up with an explosively angry father, she learned to survive by becoming hyper-vigilant, straining to catch the microscopic cues, a lowered eyebrow, a shift in tone that signaled an impending rampage. As an adult, this trauma-induced radar made her a social sensitive, capable of reading silent signals most people miss. So this story, let me progress to yeah. The story has a lot of things revealing. So going further with the story, let's listen the story first fully. Then we'll decode what is the learning from the story. In graduate school, Katrina instantly realized a fellow student was secretly sleeping with a professor simply by observing how their bodies subconsciously moved in a unison across a room. When he wiggled. Katrina noted, while this hyper-awareness can be a superpower, it is often a curse. Katrina would constantly read and suppress anger or sadness in her colleagues' postures, causing her to react to private emotions she was never supposed to see, which made her appear intrusive and angry herself. We constantly transmit a rushing stream of nonverbal messages, gestures, eye movements, and postures, shifts that acts as a silent modifier to what we say. Justin Cassell at Carnegie Mellon University has spent hundreds of hours analyzing these micro movements. She found that the timing of a gesture dictates its meaning. For example, if you say, "She is a great candidate," and nod simultaneously, you send a sincere message. But if the nod comes in the short silence after the word great, the delayed timing instantly signals sarcasm and phonies. So we have to be mindful on that because it signals sarcasm or phonies to the listener's unconscious brain. We cannot avoid generating meaning through our bodies. So nonverbal cue is very, very important. We need to be mindful about. So what are the key insight? The first key insight is the unconscious transmission. We communicate loudly and automatically through our bodies. People who lack the intuition to decode these silent signals suffer from social dyslexia, blundering blindly through interactions. So, because we are aware of NLP, where actually we have learned this, how to actually decode the non-verbal cues, it is easier for us to decode consciously. So the nonverbal cues that is coming from the body language is highly important, and let's try to be mindful of them, and that helps us um, get much more aware, and we can behave, or we can actually plan our actions accordingly. Second key insight that we got is the time, or the timing dictates the truth. We have seen, right, the from the story, or the example that we have discussed after the story. A gesture must occur just before or simultaneously with the emphasized word to be perceived as authentic. Politicians often look fake because they are taught what gestures to make, but they lack the natural timing. So let's learn from the mistakes that they do. But however, I see that these days the politicians are also NLP equipped, and they are taking the advantage of this one. But in general, actually, because they deliver a lot of speeches, so that is the general observation that's found in understanding their behavior, or reading their behavior. That is what actually it has been revealed. And the third key insight from today's discussion is the burden of over awareness. Picking up on every subtle emotion cue can be highly disruptive as also. True social intelligence requires not only sensing these cues, but possessing the tact to know when to know that knowledge to yourself, but possessing the tact to know when to keep that knowledge to yourself. So before going to the deep reflections, let's see what's there in the slide for us today. So the first slide is about the trauma forges the social radar. What is the catalyst? Growing up with an explosively angry figure forces the brain to strain for microscopic cues, a lowered eyebrow, a subtle shift in tone to predict impending danger. This is about the story that we have just discussed. So that is a catalyst. What is the result? The creation of a social sensitive, an adult whose trauma-induced radar unconsciously reads the silent signals that most people entirely miss. And what is the practical scenario to learn and implement here is the meeting pre-read. Recognizing a boss' subtle jaw clench or shallow breathing before they even speak, allowing you to seamlessly pivot your your presentation tone before the atmosphere turns hostile. That's how we can actually grab the attention, and grab hold of the overall delivery. Moving to the next slide, we have this unconscious transmission of meaning, how it actually happens. The inescapable broadcast. You cannot communicate. You cannot not communicate. Milanji, hope you remember this from our NLP. You cannot not communicate. I think you're in mute. Okay. We constantly transmit a rushing stream of non-verbal modifiers, posture shifts, eye movements, weight distribution bypassing spoken words entirely. So all the time we are actually broadcasting something to the universe and to our surrounding. So even when you are completely silent, your body is broadcasting your true feelings to the bottom up brains of everyone around you. So the practical scenario here is the hidden no. A client verbally says the proposal looks great, but their crossed arms and torsos physically angled towards the door broadcast rejection. So this is something which is to be noted, as nonverbal cues are more important and more specifically paid attention at. Otherwise, we would be thinking that the client is really saying that yes, the proposal is really looking great. You seamlessly pivot. What concerns do you have that we have not covered? If we are not aware, then we will miss this, and we will miss the point to discuss that what concern do you have that we have not yet covered, unless until we specifically ask. By understanding the non-verbal cue from the client, we will miss the point, and maybe we will miss the client as well. So how it, let's go a little deeper. Subconscious synchronization exposes hidden ties. So what it says is the hidden tail. What is a hidden tail here? It is possible to deduce a secret affair or hidden alliance between two people purely by observing how their bodies move in unison across a crowded room. Even in a crowded room also it can be very well detected if someone understands the non-verbal cues. That is the hidden messages around or the hidden messages only for the people who are aware. So what is the mechanism here? So just going back to the story, when she wiggled, he wiggled. Bodies unconsciously fall into rhythm and physical alignment when a deep connection or hidden intimacy exists. So the practical scenario here is mapping true power dynamics. In a complex board meeting, you identify the true decision maker not by who speaks the loudest, but by observing who the rest of the room subconsciously mirrors when they shift in their chairs. So this is again purely from mirroring concept of NLP, wherein actually to establish great rapport, this technique is widely adopted by many. Let's go even deeper. So what are the micro timing that dictates the truth? So there is this path and path B, wherein we can see how in path A the audio and kinetics are almost happening at the same time, simultaneously preceding or preceding. That is sincere agreement or sincere nod, a positive nod actually. But in the path B or the scenario B, if we see that the audio is coming first, but the action or the kinetics is coming little later, then it may indicate that it is sarcasm or phonies. So we need to be very careful when we are delivering. If our intention is to give the genuine feedback, or we are genuinely saying great, then we need to have our body respond, or our non-verbal cues, the body language should support that at the same time. And if we are observing someone with some differences in time, their body language is saying something else and their tone is saying something different, then we have to be cautious there and take action accordingly. So what are the practical scenarios that we get from here? Spotting the verbal vendor's bluff. For example, the contractor says we can hit that deadline. Your brain flags them because their reassuring nod comes a full second after the sentence ends. You instantly demanded a contingency plan because if you are aware of this fact that how actually brain works and you catches the non-verbal cues, and then definitely you can take the action that is really required. That is called a visionary section. So you can instantly demand the contingency plan by spotting it spot on, right? And then let's go even deeper. The curse of knowing too much. The flip side of it is also there that we need to be aware and be cautious. It is not that um, because this is important, we keep on noting the non-verbal cues and process too much. So the invasive perception is the hyper-aware constantly read the hyper-aware constantly read suppressed anger or profound grief in colleagues' posture, sensing private emotions they were never supposed to see. What is the reaction time? Reacting openly to hidden, suppressed emotions making appear erratic, intrusive, or angry yourself. It is highly disruptive burden. So we need to be enough intelligent to choose where to read the cues and where to just ignore and focus on our main goal. So let's discuss the practical scenario here to learn the art of strategic ignoring, or we can say that the art of letting go. This is one of the 8 powers that we learn in Raj Yoga, the art of letting go. So you sense a colleague's profound hidden grief during a status update. Instead of invasively calling it out in the open, you respect their suppression. You keep the meeting light and offer a low pressure coffee later. The spectrum of social perception. So we have 3 slides to cover. Okay, let's quickly cover it so that we can start a new topic tomorrow. So this slide actually you can take a screenshot and it is self-explanatory. We will just read the practical scenario here. That is self-correction in action. Catching yourself acting on a hyper-aware impulse to call out a hidden frustration, pausing and intentionally shifting to socially intelligent restraint by keeping the insight locked. Training the bottom-up brain. How to train the bottom-up brain that we have discussed in the previous session. So, how to actively hone your social radar by depriving the brain of spoken words. By depriving the brain of spoken words, forcing total reliance on microgesture, synchronization, and shifting weight. What is the practical scenario here? The 10-minute muted masterclass. Tonight, watch a dramatic TV scene or video interview with the sound completely muted. Actively guess the power dynamics and emotional shifts purely by watching the actor's physical synchronization and micro timing. Turn the sound on to verify your accuracy. So, this is a very practical and very enjoyable, fun activity by muting the show and then guessing the synchronization of micro timing, how the synchronization and the micro timing is actually and perfectly um, been placed in the movie, or in any act will give us the intelligence to mimic or simulate the same in our day-to-day interactions. So this is the last slide. It is about true intelligence requires tactful restraint. Everything we attend to generate meaning, but not every meaning requires a reaction. Not every meaning requires a reaction. That is very, very important. Again, this is also calling for the power to exert, that is the art of letting go. What is the discipline here? The true social intelligence is not just about the biological ability to sense an impending emotional storm. It is the absolute discipline to know when to keep that knowledge completely to yourself. When to keep that knowledge completely to yourself. That discipline we should have. And let's discuss the practical scenario here. A silent de-escalation. You read hidden frustration in your top performance posture. You do not say, I know you are mad. You use the knowledge of their frustration to quietly remove a bureaucratic roadblock from their plate the next day, solving the emotion without ever exposing it. And let's summarize the today's session that we have discussed, the master blueprint for silent signal. So it has 4 aspects of it. We have discussed how the transmission happens, how the timing matters the most. If we miss the timing, then how it may completely change the meaning of the message, right? And how we can synchronize by understanding these 2 concepts, the transmission and the timing, and the unconscious posture unison reveals hidden ties and intimacies. And finally, tact. True intelligence is sensing every cue, but possessing the discipline to withhold your reaction, or letting go of the things which hardly matters to us. That intelligence we should have, and we should exert the power of letting go to suppress few of the things or to not react few of the matters which are of less importance or less impact to us. So this ends today's session, and see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bikachi, for today's session. It's good that you connect that with the letting go of Raj Yoga because that is very keen. Once you understand the power which you have to understand the cues, but at the same time, it's very important to know the other power of letting go. It's awesome session. Thank you. So definitely there is this thing we need to implement and see how it works. But yeah, I will go through the recordings of the previous session and yeah.
Yeah, sure. And
yeah,
tomorrow
anything
we
else?
have a different time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
2:30. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
2:30. See you tomorrow. Have a nice